Hey everybody. Sad to say, I am on a field trip. Um, the John Steinbeck Center. But I wanted to give you a 15-minute video to help get you started working on your create task. So I'm just gonna go over my goals a little bit for the day and get you guys started. So this sub should be playing the video in class. Thank you, sub. And we'll do it. So the first thing I wanted to do was I'm also doing a task. So I was going to talk about where I'm at. And there's a few things I want to talk about that I sort of need to know before I get started coding. So I was going to go over some inputs and outputs, what I want to have happen when the user interacts with the buttons. And that lets me set up my big goals and break this giant task down into some subproblems. I also want to set a goal for next week too, when I'm breaking that down. And then at the very end of class, I would like you guys all to just reflect on how'd your task go. Did you know what you were doing? Did you not know what you were doing? Okay, so this is my app. My app is made to help with my problem of tracking who is in the bathroom. I like to know who is out and for how long. So it serves the purpose of helping me keep track of class. It's kind of weird because timing students is weird, but I think it could help some students. So here's how it's set up. I have a class period drop down called class DD. And then when they click on, then I also have this student picker drop down. I have the current student who might be out. I have a time that they've been out. And then for the whole class, how many trips they took during a period and how much time they took during the period. And a start and stop button. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements. And it's a lot. I even got a little overwhelmed. I coded mine yesterday. Just wanted to make sure that I could do it. And it was a lot to do. But one thing I did was I worked with Alekia and I broke it down. And she asked me these questions and they really, really helped me figure out okay, I need to do this, 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 and then break it down even further. The first thing I always think about when you're making an app is after you have it all laid out like you guys do, what can the person who's using it interact with? And in this case, this would be the students. This would be you guys. So there's 3 things that they can interact with on my list. They can pick their class. They can pick their name in the top 2 drop downs. And then they also can click the start and stop button. So that leads me to what should happen. So before this, the very first thing that the app does is it makes sure that you've picked a class. So if you don't pick a class, you can't do anything. So student picks a class period. There's 4 and 6 on mine. Those are my AP CSP periods. After they click on the class period from the dropdown, what I want to happen is I want to load all the students in that class. So in this case, I imagined I chose Ashley on the dropdown. And all I want to have happen when that happens is I don't want to start the timer. I just want Ashley to show up and the student who's been gone. All these other 3 boxes aren't filled. And the very last button is this start and stop button. And I want it to do 2 things. I want to either start the timer if a student has been selected or end the timer. As soon as they start the timer, I want the time to start populating in here. I want the total trips to go up by 1, and I want the total time to be updating. Okay, so what I want to have happen with these 3 inputs, I just kind of talked about it, but the first dropdown loads students into the correct period into the second dropdown. So the first dropdown controls the second. The second dropdown sets the student to be up, ready to press start. And then the start button should begin it and end the timer. I'm going to need a lot of variables to keep track of this. A lot. So I think that when I thought about it, I thought, okay, I need a list of classes. I need a list of students for each class. So I'm going to have for each class a list of students. I'm going to have a variable to keep track of the time. So that's going to be a number. I'm going to have a list of total trips. So I'll keep track of each student. How many times they've left today or through the week. I'm going to have a list of total time for each student, and then I can add them all up and get the total time. I can add those ones all up and set the total trips. And then the start stop button as well, and that's just a control. I'm going to keep it on false when they haven't clicked the start button, and I'm going to put it on true when they have clicked the button. So here are all my lists. I list them out. I should have at least 6. And this is actually the design, how it ended up looking. And I can show you it running at the end. I always like to know all my elements as well. So I just listed my elements. So class DD is right here. Student DD is right here. Start stop button, this one, and that one's going to change color. And then these are the 4 outputs that they can see, and they're in text or numbers. So I have 2 really big tasks. So this is huge. You need to think of your biggest tasks. So I thought the first thing I have to get before I can do anything is my drop-down menus. And then I have to do that timer and total trips with the start and stop button. So when I'm thinking about those, I'm going to do my drop-down menus first. But that even has a lot involved in it. And then the start and stop button has a lot involved in it. So like these are my 2 big tasks, but I need to break them down even more. So drop-down menus, it needs 2 on events. There's 2 drop-down menus. That's how I'm going to break it down. And what I want is the class DD needs to load the students from the correct lists. So that's what I need to do first. And then I can worry about the student DD on event. And that needs to load the correct student. And I also want to find the index of that student from the list. And I'm going to teach you a new function that we can use to do that. The start and stop button is a major task. That's like key. That's where I'm going to write about. But it needs to churn red and green when clicked. It needs to change the text start and stop when clicked. It needs to start a timer when clicked. It needs to end a timer when clicked. It needs to add 1 to the trips. It needs to add the total time by adding every student time in the list. And it needs to update all the outputs. So I'm going to share this with you, but I just wanted to show you how I started my code. The first thing I did was I made some lists. So the first list is my class periods list, 4 and 6. And then I wanted that property to set right away. So I used the set property function on the class DD. I wanted the options to change to class list. And we could fill this out. I wasn't going to have you guys do this in class, so I made a class list for each person's name. And then the next big thing starts on line 6. So I want to keep track of the amount of time they've been out for the day. So I started all these at 0, and luckily the way lists work, these index actually kind of match up. So if I wanted Matthew, right? Shout out Matthew. He is at index 1. So I would know by checking these other lists at index 1. That's what I need to update when he goes to the bathroom. And I can keep track of him for as long as I want. I also use the start button as false, just so like every time I click it, I'm switching it to true or false, so I know what's happening. And then I have an on event, which we're going to do. So you guys need to hop on the link. It's on the slides, and you're going to do this with me. I was going to have you guys do it on your own, but okay, so let's do this. The first drop-down should load students from the correct period list. Okay, so I am going to hop on to this app, make sure I remixed it, and I want class DD on event to set a property on the student DD. So I'm going to think about what user interface functions. We need a lot of these, and the one I want is set property. And I want to set the students drop-down menu. So I'm going to find that. And I don't want to set the like the height or the color or anything. I'm just worried about what's in the list. And this deals with the options. And you can see it wants a list. So I'm going to get rid of this list, and I'm going to look for the lists I already wrote. Oh, I have 2 lists. So that means I'm going to have to make an if statement too. So depending upon what this person picked, I want to set the right one. So I'm going to use an if else, and we need to think about what we want to find. So I'll probably want to check if they pick period 4 first. So I'm using an equal check, and I need to get some properties. So in this case, I'm just going to use get text because I'm getting text. Actually, I'm going to use get number. It's a number from the class DD. And if I get period 4, then I want to set this list as period 4. Otherwise, there's only one other class, so I'm going to change this to my period 6 list. So we can test this out right away. So it loads this. Let's see, if I click on 6, it should show Ozzy first, and it does. Let's click on this. This is good. Okay. That is just like my very first thing. I got one of my subtasks done. What's my next subtask? Create an on event that checks which class from the, I just did that. Create an on event that loads the correct student's name from student dropdown by finding the index of that student's name using get property. And I need to set the text after that. So this get property one's really cool. You can pick an element and a property you want to get. So in this case, I want to get the index property of the student dropdown that was chosen. And it's going to return whatever that number index is. So let me hop on here. And I first need to make a variable to keep track of my index because I want to save it, because I'm going to use this one a lot since the index of this student is really important, because that's where I need to add my time and add my trips and all that good stuff. So I'm going to go student index is a great name for this because it's the student's index, the current student index. Oh man, where did it go? And what I need to use is I need to use the get property. So it's kind of hard to find, but it has 2 parameters. So I need to pick the class drop or the student drop down first. And then I want to choose the right one. There's all this stuff. You can get the value, but I want the index, and I can't find the index. And then I'm just going to print it out real quick to finish.